Hey everybody, it's the 10th episode of UIO, the new podcast for teenage girls. Hugs to everyone and thank you for joining UIO, the podcast for teenage girls. It is for you and about you inside out. I am Sonja Lewis, your host. Today we're talking about peer pressure, which is often about fitting in. This plagues us all, but why is peer pressure so heavy during the teen years? And what can we do to make life a little bit lighter? Here to help us out today is Natalie Savvides, author of Full Circle, an intriguing account of her teen years to now. Aside from her writing down the bone style writing, which I love, Natalie goes into schools and talks to teenage girls about bullying, peer pressure to be a certain way, look a certain way, diet and health, and so on. The lady comes with quite a bit of experience on the subject. Let's talk to her now.
Welcome, Natalie.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for agreeing to be a part of UIO. The subject of peer pressure is one that runs right through life, however old or young we are. But I recently read a story in which a 100-year-old lady was asked about the best part of being 100, and she said, no peer pressure. And so I thought that was rather funny and didn't want to have to wait that long, and certainly for teenage girls, to deal with the issue of how to manage peer pressure. But having said that, teenage girls face more peer pressure possibly than any other age group. So much is expected of them. Not only are they dealing with substantial growth and developmental issues physiologically, I think that, we know they're sexualized more than boys, for example. And girls are dealing with issues of body image, appearance, and so on, and have some big decisions about a lot of things in life. And some of them don't have clear right or wrong answers, like, what sport to play or academic to major in. But other decisions involve serious moral questions, like whether to cut school, try alcohol, cigarettes, and even sex. And there's an issue that today's girls are dealing with, I think more so than perhaps generations before them, and it's a rather complex issue of gender identity. Gender roles, whether accepting traditional roles or rejecting them. And it's often confused with sexual orientation, but of course it's not one and the same. I heard this morning on BBC News that there's been a rise in teens seeking help about gender identity, how they want to dress, what they want to study, what sports they want to engage in, how they want to be identified. And I know it's not new because we've always had the girl who's on the soccer team. We've always had the boy, the Billy Elliot type who dances. But it's really becoming a complexity that feeds into peer pressure. So rightly or wrongly, I think sometimes girls feel they have to try new things or rush to conclude who they are because everyone else is doing it. It seems to be about fitting in. And so I know the stress can be enormous. We have lots of questions about how to handle it and how to manage it. I'm so excited that you're here today to be able to help us with that. So Natalie, I know you've talked to many teenage girls about peer pressure. And I think first, can you talk to us about what it really is, what it really means to you, and how to recognize it?
It's very tricky, I think, peer pressure, because it is so broad and it affects everybody very differently. But I don't think there's any child that doesn't come across it at some point during school, particularly teenage years. Probably more so girls than boys in certain areas. I think basically, like you said, it's about fitting in. That's what everybody wants to do. They want to fit in. Some of us often feel like we don't. And it's just, I think sometimes overthinkers can always look for problems. Other people are more breezy and they question themselves less, and therefore they appear so much more confident. Whereas actually, if it came down to it and they were both given a task, it doesn't mean one could do one better than the other. It's just the way people's minds work. But outwardly, this gives a pressure because people want to be like the cool girl, the confident girl, whether she's cool or confident or not is a different story. She appears it. So I think the whole peer pressure thing is basically just people not feeling confident in themselves. They're feeling that they are in some way or form inferior to the next person. And that is the beginning of the problem. And the more you have that in your mind, the more you focus on it, the more it becomes a problem. And the more you feel like you need to become that person in some way or form to get rid of this feeling of difference.
Yeah, I mean, it creates an enormous amount of stress. What are some of the more common pressures, you know, some of the catalysts, if you will, some of the things that the girls, they're feeling? You know, they're feeling this lack of confidence, this need to fit in.
I think the most common thing, even back when I was a teenager, which is quite a few years ago now, but even with the teenagers that I see and speak to today, I think it's the sexuality is very important. I think it's the girls are getting interested in boys so much younger than I seem to remember. The relationships are starting so much younger. Yeah. And they seem to be growing up so much faster.
Yes.
Which they probably are not inside, so they're not prepared. But they are engaging in these relationships and, you know, relating to boys so much younger than we were. And I think the common goal is the girls want to be liked by the boys.
Yeah. And where do you think this is coming from? I mean, obviously it's coming, we're talking about peer pressure, but where does it come somewhat from the media and what's around them, you know, that's coming into their space?
It's difficult to know where it comes from. I think it's just the old age. No matter how modern the world comes, there's still the sort of Cinderella, the princess. I mean, you know, I've got a 2-year-old daughter. She feels this, you know, she loves the sort of Cinderella, the princess stories and things like this. That idea of love with the Prince Charming, and it doesn't go away, right. I don't think. However ambitious we may be in our careers, in, you know, looking after ourselves as individuals, we can be incredibly focused on that. But I think if you ask most women or girls, that it gives them recognition to be desired.
Yeah.
I think they want to be desired. Also by the girls, they want to be in with the in crowd and this, that, and the other. But one of the things that makes you cool, I think, is if all the other girls know that, oh, she's the one all the boys like. You know,
it just does seem to be happening so much earlier, like you said, so much sooner.
I so much earlier. Yeah. I mean, you know, I've got relatives and girls who are so young, and the conversations they have and what they're doing with their friends and how they dress. I mean, they're just growing up quicker these days.
Yeah.
They're much more connected with everything. That, you know, the internet, social media, that everything is so accessible, and we always want to run before we can walk. For them these days, it's much easier to do that.
And so, leading into social media, talk about social media and the peer pressure influence there, and perhaps how to actually manage that space as a teenage girl.
I think it's very difficult to manage it. I think it's really important. In fact, I just signed a petition, a government petition yesterday for introducing mental health into schools at all ages. I think it's really important because it's very easy to get lost in social media and to start believing everything you're seeing, and it can have a profound effect on you quite quickly, I think. I think there needs to be much more education on, you know, not believing everything you see on social media, because people are beginning to feel, I think, quite unhappy with it. I think it's fun. It passes their time. Kids these days get bored quicker, so it keeps them busy. They feel like, you know, everybody can be a celebrity now. Like the more they do it, the more they're going to be it. Few more followers here and there, it makes them feel even more recognized.
Right.
And I think that they love that. However, it has the bad side of it where people are projecting often heavily doctored images. They're making themselves look amazing. They're creating fantastic scenes. They're, taking out all the imperfections in their skin. And, I've seen it. I've tried it to do it. It's fun, but, I'm a grown woman. I can understand it and I can digest it. Young girls looking at that, if one child might have really poor skin and she's not so up on social media as others, and she's looking through the pictures, seeing all these beautiful girls, she'll be tearing her hair out.
Yes.
Whereas half of these images will be completely doctored. There are hundreds of apps that perfect your skin, and
yes.
It goes back to the whole story of touching up all the images in the magazines. I mean, now you can just do it yourself.
Yes.
But
yes.
People almost know that in all the glossies, a lot of these images of the women are airbrushed.
Yes.
We know that. But what they're not realizing, a lot of people are overlooking, is that a lot of people, normal girls, the classmates, all these people putting things on social media are also airbrushing everything.
Yes.
So people have really, they're making unfair comparisons of themselves.
Yes. Yes. And I think that's really key. And it takes me back to a question that I was going to ask you about the dangers of giving in to peer pressure, and having described that comparing yourself to others on social media, but also outside of social media when you're doing these things because your peers are doing them. What are some of the pitfalls? What are some of the dangers that teenage girls might find themselves facing?
Well, I think the first thing that springs to mind is, again, leading on from airbrushing and perfection, is this chase for perfection, which I think is a problem. I think many of us feel it at some stage. I think the Kardashians have kind of changed this a little bit with their sort of more robust figures and curvy figures. But obviously before that, and still running alongside it, is the skinny girl. I think dieting is probably the number one, because it's a form of control, and they feel like they're going to be like all these successful, wonderful women they see. They're in the media, celebrities, or the girl in the class who appears to have it all,
Right.
I think that is number one, and I think they can very quickly... It can very quickly change. Like all the things that we feel that we're controlling can very quickly control us.
Yeah.
And that's where you really lose your balance.
Yeah.
And it can get to a point where you really just don't know how to turn back.
Yeah, and I think it feeds into that question or the conversation that we were having earlier about where does it come from? Because you mentioned the Kardashians, for example, and while they might have had a positive influence, particularly on the more sort of normal body image and weight, they haven't had such a... They're so influential. But this influence that they have on glamour and sexualization, it's just crazy, because everybody thinks that they can be glamorous like this, and they grow up, the makeup, the hair, the whole thing.
I know just from things that I hear of the schools, that actually the popular girls tend to be the girls who are actually more grown up, so to speak, more sexually aware. That seems, in this day and age, to be cool.
And what can we say to our teenage girls about avoiding this pitfall? Because what can they do without feeling that they don't fit in, without feeling ostracized? What can we say about not having to go down this road?
I think it's not isolated in that sexual issue. I think it's all of it. It's the body image, it's the sexuality, it's the drinking, the smoking, the experimenting with drugs, playing truant, whatever seems cool. It's all of these things. I think the way to try and avoid it is to really start focusing on educating people to believe in themselves, to love themselves, to love diversity. Individuality is brilliant, you know. I mean, the world would be really boring if everybody managed to get themselves to look the same, wear the same makeup, same drinks, and smoke the same cigarettes and go crazy. You know, it would be really boring. It would be like a load of robots. You know, diversity in one sense, in art and various other cultural, creative topics is embraced. But in the individual and, you know, the human being, the schoolgirl, the schoolboy, I think we need to encourage more diversity and individuality. Right. Let people feel really proud of who they are. You know what? I don't want to smoke. Great. I feel good not smoking. You want to smoke? Smoke. Fine. You be you, who's a smoker. I'll be me, who's not a smoker. Right. Great. Different people, different mindsets. I think it needs to be really encouraged more so. Individuality, diversity, being proud of who you are, believing in yourself, following your heart, listen to your mind, listen to your heart, trust it. I want my children to do that, and I want that to be backed up in schools. I want them to have a lesson on that. Educated so much more in kindness and acceptance, and, you know, he's like that, she's like this. Great, you know, people are different. Love everybody, be kind. I know it's a cliche, but I think kindness really needs to be addressed in schools. Yeah. Like, seriously, there needs to be, again, a subject on that. You need to have constant updates, constant discussions, constant group talks about this. The more kindness there is, the less pressure there will be of people trying to make people do things they don't want to do, or laughing at people because they're not, because they'll have kindness instilled in them.
Yeah, because they don't look a certain way or they don't do a certain thing. Yeah. And one of the things that I definitely remember from my teenage years, and I have a teenage niece, and I know other women with teenage daughters, and it's still happening. Even from that long time ago when I was a teenage girl, teenagers in particular, and children, starting with children, but teenagers in particular can be so cruel. So I think that's so fantastic what you said about kindness. And I don't think something as simple as that we think about that, instilling that, not only at the home, but, you know, in schools.
It needs to be done at home. A lot of people are very busy. You know, sometimes both parents need to work. I totally understand that. But I think, number one, in the home is the first place it should be instilled. It comes more naturally in the home because you are family, you love each other, you know, you want to be kind. It comes more naturally. But yes, it should be instilled and taught in the home, but primarily at school. Because it seems, okay, nursery is, my children went to nursery from the minute they could at 2 years old. And I actually stayed in there for a couple of weeks, just behind the scenes. They didn't know I was there. And I watch, and I learned so much about how the children interact, how the teachers interact with the children. It's wonderful. But in nursery, it goes without saying. It's about sharing. It's about, you must share, take turns. It's natural because that's all they're doing all day long is playing with toys, and one wants this pencil, the other one wants that. Then take this and give that. And so it's all about teaching them to share and be kind to each other and play nicely in the playground. And that's all you can teach them. It seems the minute they go to school, it stops.
Yeah.
To continue, it needs to be an allocated time in school every year from when they start school, from 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then by the time you get to the teenage years, it shouldn't be coming to them to be nasty. It wouldn't come to you, because if you've had it so ingrained in you how to be kind, it's like you can't undo the maths you learnt, you know.
Yeah.
You can't learn to write and then suddenly unlearn it. If you're learning to be kind the whole time as part of your daily routine, you're not going to unlearn that all of a sudden and not do it.
No, it definitely would make a difference. I mean, it would not totally address the issues, some of the dangers that we talked about, but one thing that it certainly would address, it would sort of help with things like bullying, because peer pressure sometimes leads to that, leads to bullying. It not only leads to the issues that we were talking about, like premature sex and alcohol and drugs and so forth and so on, but there are safety issues. And I think that is a really key thing that you've said. We could all be a bit kinder, the kinder, gentler sort of people. I think that's really important. I do want to ask you a couple more questions before we get out of here. I want you to tell me, first of all, are there any instances when you think peer pressure can be a positive thing? Or peer influence, I guess.
Sorry?
I said, when I thought about it, the word pressure myself, I thought, So I said, peer influence, I guess.
Peer influence. I mean, I not in many instances. I would say if, for example, I don't know, sometimes people can also get, I think less so now, it was a few years ago, it was a bit more so, get lazy, no activity, and, maybe someone's just eating really badly and putting on weight and getting a bit sluggish and lazy in life.
Yes.
And all these other girls very sprightly, very energetic, glowing, and perhaps that might make her think, I say her because we're talking about girls, but the same for boys. That might make someone think, hang on a minute, I need to get my act together here because I'm losing the race here type thing. Yes. And that's, in that instance, probably the only instance.
Yeah, and that is a very positive way to look at it because it helps with being healthy and that sort of thing. So Natalie, tell us briefly about your book, about Full Circle, and how writing the book has been crucial to your journey, and because it goes back to when you were a teenager.
It does, and it does cover a lot of teenage years, actually. So how I came to write it was because I have always written diaries and documented my thoughts and feelings and innermost emotions. I'm a bit of an overthinker, overanalyzer of myself and of life, of everything. So I wrote it down. Nobody would have wanted to listen to all the ramblings in my mind. So I write a lot down. And my father used to say to me, you should publish your diaries one day. Nobody's got all their life documented so much. And I thought, I'm not going to do that because it'd be like running naked. It's exposing. And in any case, I've got no conclusion because it was this constant search, which I began when I was about 11, 12, 13, what I want to find love, and I want to be happy, and I want to have this happy ending, and you visualize things and you want to find them, and step by step you start looking for them, what's going to make you happy. And so I was searching for this utopia, I call it, and I was documenting it all. And then eventually I was very close with my grandmother, my mother's side, and various love issues that fell apart and relationship failures. She used to say to me, don't worry, there's a plan for you. It will all work out. So not just in love, but in everything. All the obstacles we've got when we feel like we're not good enough, or we keep sort of feeling like we're not really quite achieving what we want to, or we're not where we want to be. She always used to say, don't worry, there's a plan. It's all going to work out. And then when I got together with my husband, it was a very sort of strange occurrence. And I had known him before, and I really did feel like in that moment she was right. I think things did fall into place,
right?
Like she'd said. And then, of course, that was my search complete. So I thought, I've got a conclusion now. We had our first child. I was 38 when we got together, so we had a first child first, and then we got married. And as I was at home pregnant, I'd always worked. I wasn't working. I had time on my hands. I thought, right, I'm going to do this story. I'm going to write my story. I'm going to get these diary excerpts out. I'm going to put them in. I'm going to show people that I've struggled with all those things at school. I've had the mean girls around me. I've tried to compete. I've fallen victim to peer pressure many times.
Yes.
I've got in situations where I'm dieting too much, drinking too much, partying too much, or thinking too much, or going after the wrong boys. Then, you throw myself into university. I'm away from my family. I did my year abroad. I'm living in another country. Lots of these things which all brought with them challenges, but challenges that most girls face at some point. And then I got into the 30s, and in my 30s, I still wasn't with the right person. I was like, when am I going to get married? How am I going to find this dream that what's happening? Maybe it's never going to happen. And then I got together with my husband, and that was what I wanted. Maybe not everybody wants to get married, fine, but whatever it is to you, whatever it is you're looking for, hopefully I think everybody will get it in the end.
Yes.
If you've been it enough, it will come to you. You will find it. And that's so that was the other thing, aside from trying to encourage girls going through those years from sort of 11, 12, 13, right up to 20, working, and, all through that period, to give encouragement to say, you know what, we all go through this. And I spoke about everything very truthfully, very openly. A lot of people don't talk about these things because they're difficult things to talk about.
Yes.
But thought, why not? And then into the 30s, when you really think, sort of the Carrie Bradshaw, Sex and the City, you're ever going to find. You do, if that's what you want and you're not finding it, it can be daunting and it can make you feel lonely. And then I just wanted to say to those people that do want to find that, you will. I found it late, the least expected person ever, but it worked out.
That's fantastic, and it sounds a bit like whatever it is that you're searching for, you will find it. That's a really key message, and I would like to say thank you for writing the book, because as you say, so many people don't want to sort of barrel like that. But what it definitely does for teenage girls right up to women, in the space that you're in, it shows you that somebody else has been in that space. Yeah, exactly. You've got you're an individual. But as my mother-in-law, who lived to be 96 years old, would say, there is nothing new under the sun. Of course, we're individuals, and we're all experiencing it for the first time. But it's fantastic when a woman tells her story.
Yeah. I hope people benefit from it. I just wanted people to know they're not alone. There is light at the end of the tunnel. And, a normal girl, very, very similar situations to many other normal girls. Sometimes these books are just, they're just written by celebrities, and you can't really relate so much. It's a very different lifestyle, whereas this is real.
Is there anything on top of that? Because what you said is really key. And I don't know if teenage girls like the word cool anymore, but I'm going to say it. It's really cool. That you would like to leave with teenage girls just about life and embracing the space and, the space that they're in.
Yeah, I would just say it's so important to love yourself and believe in yourself and what you feel like doing. Look the way you want to look and behave the way you want to behave, not the way you feel you need to, whatever. And actually, the genuine people will come to you and they will stick around. The genuine people will love you for who you are. This is also why I wrote the book. I exposed all that stuff I never felt confident enough to expose when I was younger, because now I know that those that matter won't mind, and those that mind won't matter.
That's fantastic. I love it. And thank you so much, Natalie, for being with us today on UIO. It's just a pleasure to have had this conversation with you, and we will hopefully be able to consult you from time to time to answer questions for girls on the UIO webpage. And again, just thank you so much.
Thank you.
That is a wrap for UIO Peer Pressure Inside Out. Great advice from Natalie Savvides. Thank you, girls, for listening, and thank you, God, for the opportunity to do the show. Today I want to pray that girls will feel comfortable in their own skin and make decisions that are healthy and right for them rather than ones that support fitting in. I pray that girls will gain adult support early on in helping to stamp out peer pressure, making the teen years less stressful. Also, I pray that every teenage girl will become a positive influence for her peers and girls to follow. I ask these blessings in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Stay tuned for more UIO in 2018. This is the last episode of the UIO pilot series, and it's been a great opportunity to champion you, the teenage girl, and to meet so many fabulous, generous women. Again, thank you all for participating in this pilot series. In the meantime, keep your questions coming. Offer your feedback on Twitter @Sonja Lewis, Instagram @Sonja D. Lewis, Facebook onthisandthat.co.uk /UIO-podcast, And do tell me what you want to hear about in 2018. Take care of you inside out. And remember, it is you I owe.